Yes, go for it.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this London Tech Week event. I am honoured to be introducing a fantastic series of speakers. We hope this session is going to be really practical, really informative. We're focusing on Europe and the opportunities that Europe offers, particularly in technology. Let me first just briefly introduce the Department for International Trade before I then hand to my esteemed colleague Julian David, who will give you a bit of an overview of TechUK. The Department for International Trade is part of the British government. It is responsible for three main objectives to deliver for the government, all as part of its broader strategy for Plan for Growth and the Integrated Review. And the three things that the department focuses on is, first of all, to deliver on the government's trade policy, so to strike trade deals. The second is to ensure that no British exporter fails for lack of funding through our UK Export Finance facility. And the third area, which is sort of where I think we will spend most of our time today, is to support British businesses to find new and fantastic opportunities overseas to grow and to scale their companies, but also collaboration a bit more upstream in R&D. And then on the flip side, to support companies from across the globe to invest in the UK, to drive the innovation in our country, to drive competitiveness, and to ensure that the UK is as vibrant as it can be. Tech is a fantastic example of both of those, of both exports and investment. And I'm really glad that we are honoured today to also have Julian David, the head of our Tech Trade Association. So Julian, do you want to have 2 minutes on kind of your role in facilitating greater tech trade and investment?
Thanks very much, Oriel, and welcome everybody. Good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are tuning into this. Yeah, TechUK is the trade association for digital technology for British-based businesses, and our job in a way mirrors what DIT do, and Oriel has set those out pretty comprehensively. But we are private sector, so our job is to represent the private sector, engage with government colleagues on policy, but also on practical measures to help British-based businesses to land in the UK, to grow in the UK, and to be really successful. And digital is an industry, tech is an industry where if you're not global, eventually you're nowhere. So you really have to have an export and an international mindset. And that's why we've been delighted to work alongside colleagues across government, but particularly DIT, in constructing trade agreements and other activities. It's not just the actual agreements themselves, it's also working in the international bodies, is promoting the idea of digital trade, promoting the idea of freer trade, promoting particularly the movement of data and other innovations around the world. And we've been delighted to see that in the trade agreements that have been signed and the discussions going on, particularly as we're going to talk a lot more about, obviously, the comprehensive agreement with the EU, which has got a number of fantastic things in it that we can talk more about, but also others where we've done things, the Japan agreement, very key with features on stopping data localization provisions, opening government data up, and both that and the TCA have a really strong focus on innovation, bringing new technologies into the trading arrangements between countries and groups of countries. So looking forward to the discussion, Oriel.
Fantastic. And so we are sort of seamlessly now transitioning to the first bit of this session, which is a little virtual fireside chat. So you're imagining us in comfy armchairs. I'm here, probably in the middle, with Julian and Chris Barton next to me. So let me just turn to Chris. Really great to have you here in our session and for this fireside chat. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself? And as you introduce yourself, sort of pick up what Julian has just said. Just tell us a little bit more not only about the trade agreement that the UK struck with the European Union, which I know you were just a little bit involved with, but also perhaps just slightly broader on what you think the government's sort of overall objectives are in digital trade and sort of pushing the boundaries of trade policy into the kind of 21st century, into digital, into services, in a way that perhaps trade policy has in the past been a little bit, well, dare I say it, 20th century and goods focused. So can you kick us off with that? That would be fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Oriel. And I hope we're on a fireside chat. I feel I'm probably sitting on a sort of slightly awkward stool on the edge of the fire because I'm speaking from the office. But really good to be here. So my name is Chris Barton. I've recently taken over as Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Europe. So my job is to encourage trade and investment between UK and European countries, which is a fantastic job to be doing. I very clearly believe that trade and investment across the piece drives economic growth. It creates jobs. It improves living standards. It's a wonderful place to be doing it with Europe, which of course accounts for 50% of our trade and more than 50% of our inward investments, and a great time to be doing it as well, now that we've got the basis of our new trading relationship in place, further to having the trade continuity agreement and other free trade agreements around Europe. So delighted to be there and delighted to be here. And I think of all the trade, as you say, the sort of digital trade is one of the areas where I think there's a particular potential for us to be growing. And the UK is already absolutely a world leader on digital. I think in many ways it's sort of important to recognise that digital isn't really a sort of separate sector. It is sort of underpins what we do across almost every area of our trade. So it's a vital element of what we're doing, and that's why in our trade agreements in the TCA with the EU and also in other free trade agreements, we're really pushing that. So it's nice to hear there's positive comments about what's in the TCA. We agree that's got really good commitments to uphold levels of data protection. We've subsequently agreed data adequacy agreements with the EU, which will allow continued flow of trade. We're actively involved in Horizon Europe, which is the EU's big sort of R&D program, with getting on for 100 billion budget for R&D. So we're wanting to be really active in that. And then in the trade deals themselves, as you alluded to, I mean, a lot of what we've done so far in trade deals has been sort of replicating what was there with the EU, but we've already looked to improve on the digital side. For example, in the Japan deal, we're looking to agree with Singapore, a digital agreement there. And in our new agreements with Australia, New Zealand, US and so on, we will be wanting to really champion the digital provision. So it's a fantastic time to be doing this, and really look forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. And I think it's really important, I suppose, for our listeners to kind of think about how the British government is kind of looking at this amazingly diverse and successful sector. You know, we can reel off the stats, but I won't. Lots of unicorns and lots of VC and lots of future unicorns, but using trade policy to really kind of make sure that we're making the most of it. And so for those of you who may not have noticed it, I think one of the really interesting things about the Norway, Liechtenstein, Iceland deal is that for the first time it mentions provisions on emerging technology. And this is a kind of recognition of the fact that technology is just going to transform everything over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And that trade policy, the framework that's set for the way in which nations trade, needs to be able to kind of keep pace with that. But Julian, we don't have a huge amount of time. I think it's really important. It'd be great to kind of hear from your perspective what you think the UK is particularly good at, perhaps a little bit around sectors, because we're in particular bits of technology. Yeah. And then I'll pass to you, Julian, where you think that handshake might be best in terms of what the opportunities are for British companies in Europe. But Julian, to you, what are we good at?
Yeah, so first of all, let me position it, if I can, Oriel and Chris, because the relationship with Europe is a very interesting one, because there's a great agreement there to work on, and there's also a huge appetite in Europe for British-based tech to play a role in what they're doing, and for them to be able to work in Europe. Over the years, you've seen very much the UK as a sort of pivot between the EU, when we were part of the EU, and the rest of the world. That still obtains. There's still the perspective there that says, okay, from Central Europe, we can branch out to this world through the UK. And the more that we take the lead in things like clean tech, green tech, fintech, and the surrounding initiatives, international initiatives, to make sure that they are open and to the rest of the world, we can keep that going. At TechUK, we've invested quite a lot we have somebody in Brussels now. I am the Vice President for National Trade Associations at Digital Europe, which is the aggregation of all the trade associations in Europe. And I meet with my colleagues regularly, talking about what are tech issues and what are opportunities, also encouraging them, for investing in the UK. Come to the UK because you can try things, you can do things. The opportunity for the UK to innovate by having digital at the centre of government policy is already being grasped. You can see that in a number of ways. Interesting speech yesterday by the Prime Minister. COP26 is coming up. And the other thing that we've done is put together a Tech 7 to go with the G7. And of course, from a European perspective, this is really significant because 3 of the G7 countries are European: Germany, France, Italy, but also the European Union is part of the G7. And so Digital Europe, our colleagues from Italy, Germany and France joined us, working with the UK lead on the G7 to promote this. And we're going to keep that going. It moves to Germany next, then to Japan. We'll keep that going. And what would we promote, Oriel, to answer your question very quickly? Everybody sort of knows the famous ones like fintech. We are second only to the US, really, in terms of what's happening there. And sometimes you could even say we're ahead of them. But there are other areas where we're really strong, and particularly in emerging technologies, deep tech as it's called. Look at quantum, look at things that are happening in Bristol. Really exciting. If you're interested in that kind of thing in Europe, come and see what they're doing. Lots of work going on in robotics, cybersecurity. Even the Americans acknowledge the UK capabilities there. But also we have an awful lot in AI, and the new AI strategy is going to reinforce that. So again, if you're in those lines of business, take a look at the European plans. I'm sure Chris will talk a little bit about this, but every European country has now got a recovery plan, and 20% of it has to be digital. So woohoo, these are billions of euros that we can sell British-based products to, or we can participate in, and we can encourage them to develop solutions with us for all of that.
Exciting. Chris.
Yes, well, thank you. I mean, first of all, I was just, we talk about sort of areas where tech can be really play a key role, and we've got a real advantage. I was just, about a week or so ago, I was in Munich for a big mobility conference, and it really struck me there that sort of increasingly in a sector like auto, where the really interesting bit is not the wheels and the doors, it's the technology underneath it. It's underpinning it, and I think we're going to see that increasingly across different sectors, how absolutely fundamentally important that is. I'll also just pick up on 2 things from Julian. One, in terms of absolutely agreeing on the sort of international cooperation with our European counterparts, and more broadly in terms of what we're doing on digital trade, which I think is hugely important. I guess a number of people have seen the digital sort of trade 5-point plan, which was our new Secretary of State published just a few days ago, and sort of underlying that is the principle of having open digital markets, enabling data flows, and encouraging international cooperation and global governance. So we very much want to do that and endorse that sort of approach, and it's a really positive area of cooperation. The second thing which I should say is, please do, for any sort of businesses on the line, please do use us as the trade folk across Europe and indeed internationally. We're here to help you. So if you're facing any particular barriers in terms of your international trade on digital, if you're wanting to land some investment within the UK, if you want support in terms of exports, that's our bread and butter and what we're here to do. So keep us busy.
keep us busy. So let me just invite somebody else just to draw up their virtual chair to the virtual fireside. And that's Connor, and just to tell us one or two things about the Europe Tech campaign that we can just round this all off, and welcome. I'm sorry you had problems joining our fireside chat.
Yeah, first, let me say thanks. Thanks to Chris, thanks to Julian, really interesting contributions. And I think if we take one thing away from today's session, it should be woohoo. Lots of opportunities there, and keep us busy because we've got people posted across European capitals, key cities who are super keen to work with you and make sure that you have the possible access for your brilliant innovations to get them into Europe. As part of that, as Oriel mentions, we have specifically a tech campaign which will gather the work of all our European teams to try and make us as efficient as possible, find synergies, give us the platform to promote the UK and UK tech as effectively as we can across Europe, and make sure that we're opening doors for you, and that makes your ability to do business in Europe easy. Brilliant to be here. Sorry, my tech let me down at the beginning of the session. Very ironic for a tech call, and I'm now dialed in on my phone, so I was rescued by my iPhone, so maybe that is a good sign on tech. But it's brilliant to be in London also for London Tech Week. The one word I've heard more in the last 3 days, I think, that I have in the 10 years that preceded it, is unicorns. And they used to be these mythical, rarely seen beasts, and that's not the case anymore. The UK is creating one unicorn every week, I think, in 2021, which is frankly astounding, and we probably need to change the name, although horses doesn't have the same ring to it.
No.
Thank you, Julian, Chris, and Oriel. Really, really useful session. And one of the things that you kind of teed us up was, what's in the TCA that's really, really critical to helping UK companies succeed in Europe. And on that basis, I am delighted to be joined by an old friend, Nick Russell, who's the Deputy Director of Digital Trade at the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport. So if Nick can join us on screen, and maybe I'll release Chris, Oriel and Julian.
Hi Connor, hi everyone.
Hello, welcome. So Nick, thanks for joining us. Maybe I could give you a second to introduce yourself and DCMS, and then take us on to sort of brief overview of what you think the highlights are of the digital chapter of the Trade and Cooperation on the 1st of January.
Thanks Connor, and sure thing. So I am the Deputy Director responsible for the digital trade team in DCMS. DCMS is the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, for those of you not familiar with us. We work really closely at the moment with DIT on all sorts of digital provisions in trade agreements. A lot of them have already been mentioned, whether it's Japan, Australia, New Zealand, or the digital economy agreement we're doing with Singapore. I think the main reason I am here today, though, is a hat that I still partially wear, but wore more in the past. I was the main negotiator for the digital and telecoms elements of the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And I'm also responsible for all the follow-up from the Trade and Cooperation Agreement still. So how our kind of ongoing relationship with the EU works in this space. So you asked me as well for some highlights from the Trade and Cooperation Agreement on digital. I think I can do that. I think a few of them have already been trailed as well by Julian and Chris and Oriel and others, which is great. It's great to see. Firstly, it's great to see a trade agreement come into life so quickly. It was one where negotiations finished on Christmas Eve, and then already by the kind of new year, it was in action and showing its worth to businesses and consumers across Europe. You don't often get that type of instant gratification with trade agreements, which normally have 8, 9, 10-year lead-in times before they're operational. A few of the things I'd point to, though, firstly, the provisions on data in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. There's two areas I point to here. Firstly, on data adequacy, where the Trade and Cooperation Agreement provided a bridge to our current regime, and then a couple of months ago, the UK secured data adequacy with the EU, which is key, I think, for keeping lots of kind of personal data flowing between businesses in the UK and the EU. The other side of data, though, is data localization. One of the things that we were really pleased that we managed to agree with the EU in the agreement was language banning unjustified data localization requirements. So these are rules where you would say that you could only build your data centers in the UK, or you can only build your data centers in France, a kind of digital protectionism type of thing. It's the first time that this type of language has ever been agreed by the EU in a trade agreement. So we're quite pleased that this is a kind of guarantee that we're able to build into the trade agreement, that kind of neither side is looking to block kind of data flows between the other. Another side of it that I think has been mentioned a couple of times already is the cooperation language we've got in the TCA. So the couple of bits I would pull out there are we've got reference, as I think Julia mentioned earlier, to cooperation on emerging technologies in there. We can talk a little bit more later, I think, about exactly what that means and how that might work. The other things that we've got mentioned in there are around cooperation on things like electronic authentication, which basically means things like digital identities. And I think some of this stuff is going to be quite important in the kind of future-leaning world, not just about how digital companies trade with other digital companies, but how technology can be used as an enabler for companies which maybe don't see themselves as digital to trade with each other. And one of the things that we think that there's a potential for in, say, the world of digital identity is the ability to be able to verify yourself quickly and easily to authorities or to other businesses in the other party. And being able to do that, I think, is a really kind of cooperating on that, I think, is also going to be a really kind of useful plank of the agreement.
Thanks. That's super interesting. And you know you've got an expert on the line when they answer most of your chance to ask them. One thing I did want to ask you about was about divergence and sort of regulation around tech, where you see the sort of where you see the path for that, and where you think there is scope for the UK to diverge from existing regulation, and what that might mean for UK businesses.
I mean, so I think divergence is an important point to raise, because there will be divergence in several areas, and we've already seen divergence. I mean, this is only natural. The process of leaving the EU means that the UK does not follow the EU acquis anymore. We don't have a say in how the regulation is developed, and therefore you wouldn't expect the UK to follow the rules which are set in Brussels. I would say that we've seen some examples of divergence. Divergence, I think, is sometimes used in a way that suggests barriers, but to me, that's not how we see it in DCMS, and that's not how we approach our kind of creation of our regulatory models. So, for example, one of the things we diverged on recently was the countries that we are seeking adequacy agreements with. As the UK, we now have our own ability to seek adequacy agreements with third countries, and not long ago, I think last month, we announced a kind of a long list of new priority countries that we would like to seek adequacy agreements with. So they include Australia, Colombia, Korea, Singapore, the USA, and the Dubai International Financial Centre. These are all areas that the EU doesn't currently have adequacy agreements, and we are diverging in the sense that we are looking to broaden the scope of adequacy agreements that the EU may have held. Another area that I would just like to quickly mention, because it's very fresh, is the AI strategy that our ministers published yesterday, which has, for those who are interested in the sector and haven't looked at it, it's well worth a look at on the kind of gov.uk website. There's a whole suite of both kind of short, medium and long-term actions that we're looking to take. But these are all about basically making sure that the UK has the most kind of competitive AI sector in the world. And they're not, the EU obviously has its own plans on AI. And part of our approach here is to say, yes, these are our plans. These are the areas the UK is going forward with. But we don't want to do this in a vacuum. And we still want to talk to international partners. We want to talk to the EU. We want to talk to the US. We want to talk to others about it. And we can have our own plans. We can diverge. But that doesn't mean we have to stop talking to each other about what we're doing and trying to make those kind of synergies work properly.
Thanks. Really good point. And also a beautiful segue, because actually, I think although we could continue this discussion at length, we have, I think, 3 experts of our own from teams across Europe who are going to online and give a bit of an overview on AI, on Industry 4.0, and the big opportunities across Europe. So hopefully that will be useful for the companies on the line. And before I bring them on, just to say thank you very much for your time. Really, really useful and really, really interesting. And if Sarah, Frank, and Christian are with us, maybe I'll hand over to Sarah in Barcelona first. Sarah.
Morning, everybody. As Connor just mentioned, I'm Sarah. I'm based out in Barcelona and work in the technology sector here in Spain. And I'm going to talk to you all today a little bit about 5G. So as I'm sure everybody and just double check everyone can see the slides. You can move on to the first slide, Sam.
We can, yeah.
Great. So as I'm sure everybody and their dog probably knows by now, 5G is essentially a general purpose technology enabler, which can unlock the potential of many other kind of underlying technologies, such as the cloud, such as artificial intelligence, which is so key, edge computing, amongst a number of other technologies. It has been built to have the power to democratize computing, to help close digital divides, and to supercharge economies. So that all sounds great, but what are the next steps for us to access it? In order to get all these great benefits from 5G, countries must have a very clear strategy, both for cross-industry policy, as well as innovation and infrastructure investment. And in order to stimulate this key investment, most European countries are involved in various types of public-private initiatives for testbeds and use cases, which should showcase the opportunities that 5G can bring, which in turn should stimulate further investment from the private sector. So what's the current situation in Europe? Well, on the positive side, Europe has and continues to demonstrate leadership in 5G infrastructure. However, although Europe is home to 2 major equipment suppliers and is a world leader in 5G trial investments, overall commercial infrastructure investment lags behind other regions. And whilst the private sector have willingly taken up the opportunity to participate in trials, there is still concern about the potential that will be realised and who will end up funding it all, quite frankly. Additionally, the high levels of fragmentation in the European market, clocking in at almost 40 major mobile operators compared to a handful in the US, combined with quite significant regulatory restraints and then intense competition from big tech, have really diminished the competitiveness and revenue generation capabilities of a lot of the European telco operators. And we can't have a presentation without mentioning COVID at least once. Having a digitalized economy and digitalized citizens is absolutely key to getting any benefit at all from 5G. And whilst I understand it's very difficult to frame COVID in a positive light, in 2020, businesses and governments adopted digital technologies in a matter of weeks, which is a change which normally might have otherwise taken years. This path should set the scene for 5G to try and take a central role in the recovery as the world emerges from this global pandemic over the next few years. So to talk about some of the key trends, some of these key future factors that are going to influence the 5G market in Europe, I took inspiration from a recently published European Commission report, which investigates the 5G supply market looking towards 2030. And I'm going to run through 4 of the key factors that are going to be at play over the next few years. Starting with Open RAN, and the extent to which it can open doors to new players. So the 5G supply side industry is dominated by a handful of suppliers, and it doesn't help major operators to be dependent on just a few companies. Open and interoperable 5G network solutions could provide an opportunity for new entrants into the market, which in turn could support vendor diversification and speed up that essential development and competition. The importance of that multi-vendor environment, and to be fair, the desire to reduce China's dominance in this area, has led to the point where there are now 3 different international industry groups pushing for this change. The O-RAN Alliance, the TIP Open RAN, and then the recently launched Open RAN Policy Coalition. Now, in order to prevent Europe lagging behind versus the US and China, it's essential for O-RAN to develop at pace in Europe. We're still, hi Andrea, we're still on the 5G first slide. I'm just talking through the 4 future factors, if you can see them there. I'll continue on. Great. So as I was saying, yes, in Open RAN, it's really essential that Europe continues to fund this and looks for ways to implement O-RAN. Otherwise, we'll start lagging behind US and China. So that's a key future factor. In terms of finding profitable revenue streams for verticals, I previously mentioned the public funded push to get 5G applications proven through industry use cases. The digitalization of industries such as health, Industry 4.0 and transport could really help generate the required transformational level of demand for 5G supply, which in turn provides the incentive for suppliers to get on with the infrastructure investment and rollout, which is so required. But finding these likely successful revenue streams for each industry is still ongoing. And that's why you'll see so many use cases, so many test beds going on right now across Europe. Moving on to the third factor, which is the degree of consistency across European projects. 5G public investment in Europe has consistently tended to take place at a national level, which clearly makes it a little bit more challenging to achieve pan-European initiatives. And those pan-European initiatives need to be cohesive and scalable in order to really generate the significant change that we're looking for. The European Union is starting to address this challenge. Recent guidance around 5G PPP and the SNSJU, which I'll discuss further on the next slide, are really developed to look at this area. And the final point I'll touch on is that 5G success really goes hand in hand with increasing levels of threat to national security. Networks are going to become critical infrastructure for both public and private sectors to function. And to a large extent, this has been realised at governmental level with policy formed in some areas, but there is still a lot to do here. And before I move on to the next slide, I'll just quickly mention the graph in the corner here, which shows the coverage of live 5G networks in Europe. As at the end of March 2021, there were only 3 countries, Lithuania, Malta and Portugal, that had not yet launched a 5G service yet, mainly due to regulatory issues. ETNO, which is the European Telecommunications Network Operators Association, indicated in their 2021 report, State of Communications, that although the number of Europeans covered by at least one 5G network had increased to 25% in 2020, this still significantly lagged behind other regions, namely the US, where that same number stands at 76%, and South Korea, which is at 93%. So as we move on to the next slide, I'd like to talk to you a bit about the opportunities within Horizon Europe. As my colleagues Oriel and Chris touched on earlier, despite leaving the EU, the UK has retained associate status for Horizon Europe, which allows our full participation in the €95 billion research and innovation funding programme. Horizon Europe offers a great way for innovative UK companies to really help shape the future of 5G across Europe. I'd like to highlight a couple of calls. The first one is around supporting the 5G supply chain diversification agenda that we spoke about as a key future factor on the previous slide. Projects receiving funding here are going to have to respond to the need to build out EU strength in component technology in the supply chain across Europe. And then the Smart Networks and Services Joint Undertaking, that's going to be scoping out and issuing calls most likely from next year onwards, and seeks to boost 5G deployment across Europe and also foster Europe's technical sovereignty in 6G. And so on to my final slide. I wanted to provide a flavour of the types of actions that the UK government is propelling across multiple countries in Europe. And to say to you all that if you are interested in finding out more about these events, do give me a shout. You'll see that we've got upcoming events before the end of the year around private networks in France, Horizon Europe workshops, talking to the previous calls that I mentioned between Spain, the UK and Germany. We've got mobility being addressed in Estonia and many more. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat bar, and do get in touch. I'm really happy to connect you to any of my colleagues across DIT Europe to talk more about 5G. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll pass on now to my colleague Christian.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And there we are with the slide. Very good. It's very interesting though on artificial intelligence. We already talked about this a little bit in the beginning, of course, with Julie and with Chris, that it is so on top of mind of everybody now with the strategy that has been launched yesterday at London Tech Week by DCMS. As we're kind of looking at across Europe at kind of a shared challenge of, you know, what really is AI, right? I mean, it can be a bit of a container definition. It can touch upon many subjects, and at the same time, it's always a bit difficult to kind of really pinpoint in a specific sector. And what is particularly interesting about that, I think at least, is that we used to kind of talk primarily about AI as a promise for the future, of making processes more efficient, of being really transformative for the economy. But now we are actually kind of seeing, you know, the practical implications of that in multiple sectors. Right here, I listed mobility, financial services, robotics, manufacturing, and GovTech. But of course, it's manifold. At least in Europe, we see kind of those areas as particular linking points for UK strengths in the AI sector. So, kind of my first point, yeah, it is that indeed we are kind of now looking at those practical use cases, and governments are really kind of seeing, you know, how can we both in the Building Back Better agenda, in restructuring our economy after COVID-19, take advantage of those innovations that have been made, progress that has been made in both countering our global challenges, as to say, on which I will tell you a little bit more in our next slide, but also see, you know, how can we trade agreements that we agree, or in the advisory work that the OECD does under the Global Partnership for AI, or that the EU does in their action plan, try to create a little bit of a level playing field, or a kind of shared set of policy instruments that we can diverge on, as our colleague from DCMS, of course, has mentioned, but also can kind of look at as a way of how do you as a government deal with both promoting the AI sector, but also making sure that fundamental questions around ethics, around data security, around sovereignty are being. And I think it's a very exciting decision to be a part of. When you kind of look at the key European opportunities, I talked a little bit about them, especially in the Netherlands. We had a mission last year, a cyber fintech summit here in the Netherlands. You see a very strong focus on knowing your consumer and identity access management. There are a lot of AI solutions there, also from the city, that are able to scale up around, you know, proving your own identity when you want to deal on distance with your bank, and making sure that the money or the investments that you made are not funneled through towards other ends. And you kind of see similar initiatives like that across the board. What is particularly interesting as well is, I think, GovTech. You see both the role of government as someone who has to set a regulatory framework, has to promote the ecosystems, but also as one that may be able to make use of technologies. What is interesting here in The Hague is that we have the Peace Informatics Lab, but also a GovTech chapter of Public.io. Next year, the GovTech Summit will also take place in the Netherlands, so I can already put that on your radar, perhaps, where that is really kind of focusing on someone, I think, has to turn their microphone off. On kind of looking at how can you make the government deal with the challenges that there are right now in information provision and citizen services, but also in their international domain, looking at big data streams for conflict prevention with office like UNOCHA. I think that would also be a very interesting dialogue to get into if you're a UK company that is active in that area. So that kind of leads me to my third point. I do really see now there's a bit of a top league almost, as I've called it, of Paris, Berlin, Geneva, Tel Aviv, and Amsterdam. This could be a lot longer. Of course, a lot of European capitals in Western Europe are really ahead of the curve and on par with what is happening in the UK. And what you also see is that where the internal market in the United States, for instance, is a lot more integrated, of course, you see that there's kind of a push from the European Union to also create this digital single market. It's been a process that's been in the works, of course, for a long time. At the same time, I think there's really a push now with the Recovery EU agenda and all the national strategic action plans in using AI in rebuilding the economy after COVID-19 to build all these efforts in, let's say, a globally competing institute, as I've called it there. At the same time, we are kind of talking about the whole European network around AI. So I would really recommend you to not only think about going to Paris, because that is, of course, a very competitive market. So it would also be very interesting to take a look at some of our markets that are more still in, let's say, the capacity building phase. Where you can really, almost be at the root of the building of the ecosystem. My colleagues in Prague, in Warsaw, in Bucharest, in Riga, and in Budapest have all indicated that there is a very strong push there too in their rebuilding agendas on including AI. In Poland, it's especially very interesting. You see a really large rise there in investments in the tech sector, and the Prime Minister's office has now also started an office for AI. So you can really see that from a central government level, there's a lot of interest in pushing that ecosystem into the next phase. And that is kind of the two roles that we have with DIT. So it's part of in the markets that are already very established. There's a lot of competition. It's making introductions, the connections, highlighting events for you. But maybe in those other markets also a little bit of market creation almost, where we can also definitely help you with, and where my colleagues will stand ready to assist you. And with that, I would like to move to the next slide, Samantha. Thank you. Almost one back. Yeah. So the way we are trying to kind of bundle our efforts with DIT is linking AI to, let's say, the global challenges, as I have called it here, around energy and health. So clean growth is one of our main campaigns. E-health is, of course, a major current issue after the COVID-19 recovery. And you see a lot of these pushes abroad as well. I've listed a couple of countries here: Italy, Poland, Czechia, Denmark, Spain, France, and the Netherlands and Portugal. They've specifically kind of earmarked budgets in their EU-connected recovery fund. So let's say the national implementation of the Recovery EU budgets that has been made available by the Commission based on the Eurobonds and the debt raising. To kind of really give these local ecosystems a push. So what you also see in the UK, of course, with the Office for AI shared between the departments of DCMS and business. You see that in the Netherlands, there's a Netherlands AI coalition that's got about 500 million investment to really invest both in use cases, in making availability of talent, but also really act as an almost public-private partner in investments, so making investment themselves and having it matched by private industry. So as Julian said, there is a lot of money available that is being pushed into these sectors, and up to you to go and get into that dialogue and get it. And when we kind of then specifically look at those challenges, so I talked to my colleagues about this in the network, and we saw, especially in the Nordics, in Portugal, my own country, the Netherlands, and in Switzerland, that AI is very specifically linked to climate change objectives. And that really links into the work that embassies around the COP26 event that will take place later this year in Glasgow as well. So if you want to get in on that dialogue, on the technology kind of application and looking at that interaction, how as you as an AI business can have a contribution to reaching the targets around climate change and net zero, then I would definitely highly recommend you to get onto those kind of local events that we're doing at Post, where we're bringing together investors, corporates, system integrators in the local countries to kind of see, how can we bilaterally look at addressing these challenges, and make the introductions to scale up and to expand to the Netherlands or other European countries there. So the third point, we're looking at also the e-health objectives, especially Poland, Ireland, and Austria have indicated a strong focus on this, and there are also many kind of, let's say, European cities that also have a bit of pharma or health powerhouses that I would definitely advise you to take a look at as well. Of course, the European Medicine Agency has moved to the Netherlands after the UK exit of the European Union, and in Denmark, in Switzerland, there's also a large sector with Novartis and other big pharma houses. And in Denmark, the British Embassy will host a bilateral AI in healthcare conference in February 2022. With one extra 2, I see. So my colleague Cecile Overgaard is leading that. I would definitely advise you to reach out to her. It's definitely with these governmental regulators, these multilateral regulators, and with these powerhouses that we as a DIT and as an embassy can really provide you with the context and the ends that you need to get your dialogue a step further. So again, I would really advise you to take a look at that. Finally, Sarah already touched upon this, a couple of horizon calls, and Frank will too. I saw when looking at AI, we're coming a bit back to my original point, the multifacetedness of it means that it is also integrated in multiple horizon calls. So I will refer to their slides to take a look at those. What I would specifically mention is the AI, data and robotics partnership, which is started between multiple in cities, and that kind of ties in a bit back to what I said earlier, that the EU is really looking to create this globally competing institute. So this partnership will hopefully drive those markets a little bit close together, and if you are able to join one of those sessions or programs or funding calls that they have running, then I would highly recommend it. Other key events to consider, a lot of this will be a bit recognition bingo almost, specifically ones that you may not know are Autonomy Paris, which really focuses on AI in automatic vehicles. Highly recommend connecting with our colleagues in Paris because they are planning to host a mission or event in the sidelines of that event. COP26 of course talked about that. NWC, Smart City 2 / Web Summit and VivaTech. Those are probably already all on your agendas, but again, we're all looking at being there in some form or another, pending what will happen, of course, with regulations over the coming months. So do please stay in touch. Finally, my final spiel. In a couple of weeks, we'll be in Amsterdam for the first physical event again from the British Embassy, the first trade show, the World Summit AI, really global event. This time we'll be still a little bit hybrid in the twilight zone between coming back to physical events. We still got a couple of places, £500 to attend. Introductions will be led by Minister Grimstone, introductions with investors, corporates, government officials. So if you're interested, take a look at the link over there. Thank you very much. Then now I would like to hand the slide presentation to my colleague Frank from Germany.
Hello, good morning and welcome. My name is Frank Ambos and I work for the Department for International Trade in Germany, Munich. Thanks, Christian, for all that information on AI. That was really, really comprehensive and a lot to digest. So to assure you, I'm the last one on covering a subsector. I have chosen Industry 4.0 to give a bit of an overview, give a bit of a trends and opportunities for UK companies, for UK exporters. So Industry 4.0, that's a German coined term. You can also say like smart manufacturing. It's basically digitalizing production plants and way more. In terms of an overview, I'd start to say look, Germany leads the Europe production, manufacturing production. Latest stats I found was that Germany itself has 29% of the EU in terms of production, followed by Italy, France, and Spain. And if you ask, but what are they producing? It's first place is vehicles and machine and motor parts, food, metals, and machinery. In terms of business climate, I have put here a graph on the right side. You see that the industrial production in Europe, you see two slumps there. It's quite small. So you see the first slump is 2009, that's the financial crisis. More interesting is the slump here in 2020 on the right side. That's COVID. And you will be relieved to see there's a big slump going down to 60% of a normal average of 100, but rebounding quite quickly afterwards. So industrial production is back on track, rebounding after COVID, especially in Germany. There the numbers are already above the pre-COVID times, and so all the orders are quite good, and it's a relief to see for manufacturing heavy countries as is Germany. I think what I'd like to say as well, as third point, is and that was covered a couple of times already now, the political ambition of EU leaders on digital sovereignty, basically bringing technology back to Europe. What that means in manufacturing means basically a reshoring of critical infrastructure, critical production back to Europe. You might have seen Infineon last week just opened a big 1.6 billion plant in Villach, Austria. And I've also seen that the German government intends to invest around 3 billion to reclaim production sites along the entire value chain of semiconductor production. So not everything will come back, but especially on the sensitive, highly critical areas such as quantum or on semiconductors, there will definitely be a push from political ministries to reshore production there. So I thought that's quite interesting to be aware of. In terms of trends, I won't dwell too much on these because we have only a limited amount of time. And I have also my successor, Wolfgang, who will talk after me. He can cover maybe a couple of these as well. I have put an article here. You can see the link. We share the presentations afterwards. That gives a very good overview. Just a couple of things. AI, obviously, is the most relevant trend for smart manufacturing, digital twins, virtual reality, augmented reality, robotics, and security are further trends. And I've put as a fifth one, that's not a trend, sustainability, that is more an imperative. I would say that is definitely from the political side. There's a lot of pressure to do more on greening the plants. But it's also like from the self-inflicted, from the corporates, they try at the moment to outbid themselves and giving themselves new targets for making their factories, their whole corporates greener. I've just seen that BMW last week announced a new sustainability challenge, a new strategy, and among that was a sustainability challenge. And I found it quite interesting that there was a UK company, a clean tech company, Circular, is among the winners. So that gives you a sight that there is interest from corporates in innovative companies, and the UK is among these innovative companies that they have quite a lot to offer. So I found that is quite interesting to see. Next slide, please, Sam. So in terms of opportunities, I would think just engage with all the ecosystems that are there. There are on European levels, there are these everywhere now are popping up European like digital hubs. Their core aim is to help traditional industry to get transformed, to become more digital, and facilitating the exchange of startups, corporates, and R&D institutes. On a Europe level, there is EIT manufacturing. I won't tell anything about that because the next speaker, Wolfgang, will definitely explain all about that, how to get engaged with that hub. What I found in Germany, there are these digital hubs. They are specifically focusing on different subsectors. In terms of smart manufacturing, there is Stuttgart, focusing on future industries. There's also Ludwigshafen, focusing on chemical side. And there is also an event called Digital Manufacturing for the Process Industries, taking place 26th of October. Right now, get involved in that. The link is here in the slide. Thanks, Christian, for also mentioning the Brainport Eindhoven semiconductor cluster in the Netherlands. That is for UK exporters to be able to scale through ASML, the semiconductor company in the Netherlands. I'd say also get in touch with the corporate accelerators all over Europe. I've mentioned here a couple ones. Startup Autobahn in Germany. There is partners Daimler, Deutsche Post, BASF. There are a lot of German corporates on there. BMW has its own startup garage. Accenture has its own industrial Internet of Things hub in Munich. And yeah, there are lots of European conferences on smart manufacturing. The biggest trade show at all, not only on smart manufacturing, is in Hannover. That is the go-to trade fair, definitely on Industry 4.0. The link is there. More trade shows and conferences are also in the link. And last but not least, just engage with us, engage with DIT colleagues. With me, with Christian, with Sarah. Germany, France, Italy, and Spain have explicitly cited smart manufacturing as a key opportunity. We do on a regular basis trade missions. We do events, matchmaking. We have last year had a UK-German digital catapult challenge where it was about applying AI to industrial challenges with Siemens and CHEP Europe. Just recently, I think it was a week ago, Italy did a fantastic webinar showcasing UK excellence in automation. And so there's lots in the pipeline. There's lots of things we can help you with. Just engage with us. I put my name as well in the chat room. So that is just an offer, and just keep us busy. I think that was what Aurel was saying in the beginning. That is my offer. And next slide, please. There's only a couple of relevant Horizon Europe calls I wanted to highlight. I won't go into detail there. The links are all in the slides. And last as well, there are more links. Sam, last slide. Particularly interesting. Sam, yeah, this one is. There is in the platform Industry 4.0, there are over 350 practical examples from industry highlighting Germany's role as a leader in Industry 4.0. It's not only Germany. I think there are other European countries have use cases as well there. The whole site is in German and in English, so don't worry, you will see a lot of stuff interesting. All the use cases. I've mentioned more things here, a list of my manufacturing companies in Europe and more reports. So that is the end of my presentation. And with that, I give back to Connor for our next part. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Also, Christian and Sarah. Really, really interesting. Loads of information in there. And it's quite nice to look at the opportunities in a thematic way. But one of the other things we're really keen to do is to get right down into the detail of individual markets, where the opportunities are, what we can do in DAT to help you access those opportunities. So look out for something coming your way after this event, inviting you to get involved if you would like in a Europe in a Day event, which we'll be hosting in November. And in that event, basically we'll have pitches from our tech experts in markets across Europe, basically giving you the opportunity to dip in and out to the markets that you think are of most relevance to you and your company, and go into a bit more depth about what are the opportunities within that market, how can we help you access them, what is it that's specific to that market that will help you succeed, and that sort of intel. So hopefully that will be a really useful session as well, and a bit more as I say, a bit more market detail than we have time to go into today. The two things we do have time to do today is to take a bit of a external industry insight. And in that regard, I'd like to welcome Dr. Wolfgang Nieski, who's the Senior Business Creation Manager at EIT Manufacturing, and will be joining us to give the view from a European Innovation Centre. And Wolfgang, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Connor. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished audience of this excellent event. I will share my slides so that I can take you through them in a minute. I hope you will see them. Can you confirm, please, because I don't see you now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm introducing EIT manufacturing, and especially the what we call soft landing services, targeting support of startup companies, scale-up companies, SMEs to land softly in foreign markets all over Europe. EIT manufacturing is an European organization. EIT stands for European Institute of Innovation and Technology. I'm working as a Senior Business Creation Manager, and I will come back to the kind of services that we offer in a minute. Before that, our goal as European institution is to strengthen the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector all over Europe by bringing the most important manufacturing actors across Europe together in a big ecosystem, and move them through the so-called knowledge triangle between education, innovation, and businesses. For this, we have created a private-public partnership. We are a non-profit organization headquartered in Paris, allocated all over Europe. We focus on solutions to having value for high manufacturing challenges, leading really to innovation happening in industry and real applications. We are not only funded by the European Commission, we are also supported by members, more than 100 members at the moment, which are leading companies from all over Europe. Just to name a few, it's a Philips from the Netherlands, it's a Siemens, it's a Volkswagen, it's Atos from Spain, so also allocated all over Europe. In addition, we are supported by the most renowned universities and research organizations, just to mention the Fraunhofer Group in Germany or the Artificial Intelligence Research Center is a few of many examples. And we have a guaranteed budget of 400 million euro for the next 5 years to accomplish what we want to accomplish in order to strengthen and foster the competitiveness of the European manufacturing industry. We are organized in so-called co-location centers. These are local innovation hubs covering different countries. I am working out of Darmstadt, out of the German Innovation Hub. We are responsible for, let's say, the countries in the mid-European belt, but we cover basically all different regions all over Europe with our innovation hubs. When it comes to introducing, for example, UK companies into the German market or into our neighboring countries, then it goes into the responsibility of our German hub. And this is the reason that I'm introducing our services today to you as a German representative. As I said, we are maneuvering in the so-called innovation triangle. So we offer education services, innovation activities, and business creation services. Frank talked about the power of Industry 4.0, talked about the need of transforming businesses in order to keep them competitive in the global landscape. It's not only about implementing innovative technologies, deep tech, high tech, in real applications in industry, it's also about education. We see a shift of work skills. We see the reorientation of labor-intensive workforces into knowledge-intensive workforces. So machine workers in blue dresses in the future have to be able to read dashboard informations, to look into predictive analysis, and this needs definitely a change of education. So for this purpose, we develop new educational programs together with our collaborating universities, but also with VET educational program offers in order to accompany the Industry 4.0 transformation all over Europe. In innovation, we have our own funding schemes. We launch our own call for proposals. In this event, you have already received a lot of information about the Horizon Europe program, which basically targets the further development of technologies from technology readiness level 3 or 4 into technology readiness level 7, mainly, which are commercial prototypes. But there's still a gap from the commercial prototype into real application in the market. Technologies have to be further developed, implemented, adapted, integrated into existing systems horizontally along the supply chains and manufacturing, vertically along into the different systems, being it ERP systems, production planning systems, MESs, SCADA systems, and so on and so on. And the step from taking technologies from the commercial prototype into a real application is funded by EIT manufacturing. We support consortia under the lead of our own partners in so-called open calls, where every European entity can participate. And the target of those consortia should be to take prototypes into real applications. To make innovation happen, as we say, in the European markets, and not only to test applications, but to let it run and to upgrade existing manufacturing processes with deep tech, with high tech. This is accompanied by go-to-market strategies in order to exploit the one implemented solution or the solution implemented in one segment, then also over other different market segments. Because manufacturing is broad, we are not looking at the core manufacturing segments such as automotive or aerospace as such. We are looking also at manufacturing processes in the process industries, in food, in pharmacy, in chemistry. We are looking into discrete manufacturers and even into digital agriculture and food manufacturing. So it's a very broad approach, and our innovation activities aim to take the technologies also into broad applications. This is heavily supported by our business creation team. So we look especially at young companies, startup companies, scale-up companies, and take them into international markets, take them into international financing sources. And by doing this, we add on the activities which are already accomplished by the existing European ecosystems. Frank mentioned the EU DigiHubs of excellence. They are all over Europe excellently working local ecosystems, preparing startups for growing, connecting startups into industry, into financing sources. But they are all having something in common, which is they reach very fast regional borders or national borders. So we are not in competition to those ecosystems, we add value. We see ourselves as a hub that spoke systems, add to the services of the local ecosystems, select the best companies and take them international, to international investors, to international other funding sources, to international markets and companies. We'd call it access to market services, access to finance services, and we have also special expertise services to help European actors in technology transfer, in IP management, even in communication and marketing. This is typically distinguished in different stages. If a UK company would approach us with the interest to land softly in the German market, we have a so-called market readiness preparation stage where we understand what is the value added, what are the USPs, why should German customers benefit from the technology, who are the decision makers in the technology, and then we prepare really targeted introductions to those decision makers. And it's a very important service. Let's assume that the UK company has a good AI algorithm and wants to enter automotive industry, wants to talk to Volkswagen, to BMW, to Mercedes. Whom to talk to? Nobody knows it. These are elephant companies. They are diversified organizational structures. They are integrated organizational structures that are linked to each other. So you have to understand how decision-making processes work. And this is our added value. We have personal relationships with those decision makers. As I say, we have the gray hairs in this world, and this helps us to make personal introductions to decision makers in order to create the value. But we do it also event-based. We take our supported portfolio companies to trade shows, to other events, fairs, as they were mentioned, like the Vivatech in France, like the Hannover Industry Fair, like the Global Manufacturing Week in Milano, so the most important manufacturing events in Europe. But we also do what we call many-to-one introductions. Our corporate members, our Siemenses, KUKAs, Volkswagens, and all their names, they disclose us their technology challenges. They tell us what they are looking for. On the basis of this confidential challenges disclosed to us, we are looking in our portfolio for solutions. And this is another very, very proper methodology to introduce startups and their solutions to corporates. So the corporate has the guarantee that they will get high quality solutions offered by the startup and scale-up companies and the SMEs in our portfolio. This shortens significantly the technology acquisition and implementation cycle. This brings business to startups, scale-ups, and SMEs, and this brings leverage, positive impact to the corporates that disclose the challenges. So very nice collaboration schemes implemented. Just to give a few examples to illustrate our services, I selected OndoSense company. It was a company coming out of one of the collaborating ecosystems which participated in our own Boost Up, an international European-wide challenge for startups in the manufacturing area. They won the Boost Up competition in Germany. They received an access to market and access to finance support package. But moreover, they were also awarded by our venture support program in 2020. Companies could apply to get bridge financing in the COVID times when contracts negotiation and contracts closing were slowed down or postponed. Cash flow need, especially for SMEs and for startup scale-ups, was obvious. We bridged those critical situations, and one of the companies that we supported was OndoSense. And with this bridge financing, they were able to attract a nice investor. We took them into PC installations with big manufacturing partner organizations from Austria and from Germany. And this helped them to raise recently 1.5 million seed investment. They are now growing fastly, and we are preparing them now for the Series A stage. Another company in our portfolio is Nightingale HQ from Wales. We met them also, understood that they have an access to finance need, that they need equity investment in order to change growth into scaling up all over Europe. They are already established in the UK. They are successfully acquiring UK customers, but they need the global orientation now. They want to step into different European geographical markets, and this is where we offered our support. So we developed with them an access to market support roadmap, generating around about 50 leads in the first 12 months of support, and taking them also to fairs or to matchmaking events. The pictures on the right side of the slides give an example. We took them last week to the Impact Festival in Frankfurt, where the CEO, Steph Locke, had the chance to promote their technologies in a manufacturing high-tech panel, which we organized on stage. And Ruth Kearney and Steve Locke were both introduced to corporates like P&G, like Atos, just to name a few. And this illustrates how we work. This closes already the very brief introduction of EIT manufacturing and the business creation services. Just to mention at the end that we have also launched a transform call. So SMEs from all over Europe can participate in this call. They get financial support to implement Industry 4.0 technologies. This over a very broad range, as Frank already mentioned. It's going from AR, VR, mixed reality via AI solutions, automatic robotic solutions, technologies all along the supply chain, into manufacturing materials, composite materials, and so on and so on. Long list of technologies that we support, great portfolio of startups that we support, and many services that apply. And before the question is being asked, yes, UK companies are eligible. We don't distinguish between age 27 and others. We look at all European companies and want to help them to make good manufacturing, competitive manufacturing happen all over Europe. And that was it so far. I'm available in this nice event also for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Really, really fascinating. And I think that challenge of looking at these enormous companies and having no idea what the right entry point is one that will be familiar to everyone on the line. So really interesting to hear about those alternative pathways and how you can support. I think we'll move quickly on because our final speaker needs time before our event runs its course. And on top of having a European Innovation Centre, we thought it might be useful to hear from one of the big European systems integrator, specifically Indra in Spain. And we have on the line Philip Perez, who is the Program and Engagement Manager with Indra. So Philip, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's for all, and thank you, the IT, for inviting me to this event. So far, I've been hearing really nice things and good things. Now I'm going to provide our view about opportunity for UK tech companies in Europe. But the good things I'm seeing is like many of the things that you have been speaking. So we are actually 100% aligned with that and agree. Okay. So just introduction to myself. I'm Program Engagement Manager. I'm leading Indra's business development activities in the UK and also managing key interest programs in the transport and mobility sector in the UK and looking after big clients such as Highways England or DFL. Quick introduction to my company, Indra. We are a Spanish, I think one of the big Spanish system integrator. We are global, so we are present in 140 countries, revenue 3.0 billion, and employees around the world in 48,000 people. And we actually work in most of the sectors. So going to what we are looking, so we have a huge presence in Europe. 71% of our revenue and our sales happening in Europe. being a Spanish headquarters, so actually 52 of that % is happening in Spain, but we have offices all around Europe. And in those places that we don't have offices, we also deliver services for our clients. So what is our experience working for UK companies? We have been for many years already in the UK. We work with a big clients such as NAT, Transport of Defence, TfL, Highways England. And we see a common pattern for UK companies, that actually a pattern that is an advantage when you come into Europe and actually sell. So UK company generally speaking, dynamic, innovative. I would say have the partnership mindset and the win-win. They understand very much that if we are doing business, all parts need to win something, and we are here to make money and develop this world. So, and it's very result driven, and have adopted the agile paradigm or framework very quickly and quicker than many other European countries, and something a value that they add. So going back, so what opportunity we see? So as mentioned by other panelists, so something big is happening in Europe. So a lot of funds, next generation EU, 800 billion recovery plan. It's just not to recover from the pandemic, it's to create new and transform the economy of European society. And there is a lot of money there in that UK companies and UK tech companies can get benefits. So this program just generally have 5 pillars. So make Europe greener, digital, healthy, stronger, and equal. And what we are looking here is just digital. It will help, as other panels said, connect everywhere with 5G, ultra-fast broadband, receive a digital identity, making it easy to access online public services, ensuring data protection, and investing in cybersecurity. EU cities will become smarter and more efficient. Online shopping will be more secure. Artificial intelligence will help to fight climate change and improve healthcare, transport, and education. Going to the next slide. So you have this in the European Commission, you have access, but this is just no 1-year plan. This is happening, so it's 7 years budget, and you can have access in the European Commission website to see where those funds are invested and when. Okay. One thing I would like to highlight is the UK is one of the most innovative countries in Europe, as you can see in this map. And it's not only as the country, so the region. So if you see other countries, maybe, I don't know, in Spain, the concentration of innovation is more in Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, but the UK is very equal. So obviously you have the Silicon roundabout based in London, but all regions in the UK have a lot of innovation and produce a lot of innovation. And I think having built that, so it's a good opportunity for your UK tech company to sell their services and products back to Europe. And also considering the European recovery plan, many of these funds going to the central government, but then they are decentralized in the region. So for example, in the case of Spain, actually 54% of the European funds will be managed by the Spanish autonomous community. So you need to approach there, not only looking at the central governments. And we'll have access to these funds and be able to deliver services to that. So obviously companies who already have presence in Europe and or partner with European system integration, although it's not necessary, but we'll have an advantage because we'll know better the local market. So another thing that many of my colleagues in this panel have been speaking, so UK have access to European research and innovation programs. Horizon 2020, well, it's a big one. And just like mentioned, so Indra, for example, we are heavily involved in those programs which are shown here, like, for example, the Single European Sky. And yes, there is a lot of funds, and I'm welcoming UK tech companies also to partner us to see, because I know you have the technology to can help to deliver this innovation. Going more, so other opportunities I see the UK companies. So I mean, in the last 20 years, there have been a lot of European companies coming and investing in the UK, and many UK tech companies have been delivering service to them. So you're just going out in London, and you see some bicycles red with the name of the Spanish bank. So if you make a partnership here in the UK with those companies, there is a good chance to go back and sell in Spain services and technology there. I think it is a good opportunity. There are many banking, telco, so you name it. Okay. Also, opportunities is again. So it's when you go into Europe, try to not go alone. So try to partner with European integrator, European companies who understand the local market. And also remember, so UK for many years have been very successful doing offshore and making their services cheaper and getting access to the professional all around the world and high-tech professional. So Europe is a market that UK tech company can come for the near-shore outsource model. You have a lot of professionals in Europe, and just like who can get a flight every 2 hours, be in the UK and troubleshooting any problem that you might have here. And looking at challenges, well, from our perspective and what I see from other colleagues in European tech companies, so UK tech labor workforce is generally speaking more expensive than that in other parts in Europe, especially more expensive to the East and South Europe workforce. So sometimes this is a challenge. Okay, so you need to focus on the technology and the innovation, the added value, but you have it. Okay. Other things, so as other panelists says, like there is a great deal, and we are all happy that there is a great deal after Brexit in place. So just consider a new regulation that have changed, and some of them, and make sure you're doing the right thing and follow the new regulations. And other typical problem when any business trying to go to a country that is not ours is just understand the local market, language, cultural barrier. However, I'll say compared to other countries around the world, the advantage of UK companies that the English is the second language most spoken in Europe. So everybody in the tech sector speak English as a second language. So I will say it's not that disadvantage, and that's something good. And just to finish, so Indra has an open accelerator program. I leave here the website, the link. So we are all the time looking at new companies, new technologies that's coming from the market, sometimes just to partner and help us to deliver our service, and sometimes investing, and sometimes even buying companies. So due to the matter of time, so just not gonna go to the details, but just wanted to tell you, visit us and engage with us. And that's it. So good luck, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Philip. Another really interesting presentation, and the last of today. I think almost everyone who joined us at the start of the session is still with us, which I think is indicative of the quality of information and presentation. So thank you to you, Philip, but thanks to everyone who presented with us today. I think we've pretty much run out of time, and most of the questions that have been asked in the chat bar have subsequently been answered in the chat bar. There was one, I think, from a startup in Scotland who were talking about how they position themselves to be a successful exporter 6 months from now. I think the first thing I would recommend they do is have a conversation with some of our teams. Our SDA teams in Scotland will be able to give you some initial advice about what's the best route to market for your particular business. And also we have a trade hub in Europe. So if one of my colleagues can put the link in the chat bar, or if you want to Google DIT Europe Trade Hub, there's a team there that work pan-European and can give you advice on what your product offers. You might have success in, and they can also then put you in contact with specific teams in our embassies around Europe who can give you a bit more detail about how you go about entering that specific market. So I think the example was around safe shipping. So for example, they could put you in contact with our team in Athens, and I'm sure that would be an interesting conversation for you. There was another question in the chat bar. Sorry, I've lost the name of the person who asked it, maybe Lauren, around the sort of benefits of the TCA and the implementation of the TCA. I think I would probably hark back to some of what Nick said around data adequacy and the ability to allow data to continue flowing between the UK and Europe unencumbered by new safeguarding measures. Add to that the sort of the additional adequacy decisions that are being other markets, which again helps the flow of data, which I think is critical to all of your businesses. And then also the avoidance of new technical barriers because of requirements for specific infrastructure and other parts of the business to be based in one market or another, which will hopefully keep the flow of business between UK and EU. I think that was the only question answered, but please do reach out to us. As a few people have said today, keep us busy. We, the Department for International Trade, are here to help you, UK SMEs, UK companies, get your products in the market, help you find partners, help you find customers, and help you grow and succeed. And we are keen to do that as much as we possibly can. So follow up with us, reach out to us, and we will help you in your next step of your journey. Otherwise, thanks again to all of our speakers today, and it was a pleasure to have you, and have a good day.
Many thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.